Sup, guys? Toad back with you again. 1-0 yesterday as I believe I'm slightly back in the black again on the year. It's been wild, man, but I'm kind of right around even. I hit on that over yesterday. It looked really good early on as the handicap of the starting pitchers, I think, was right on. It was, I think, there were 4 runs scored in the first 3 innings, so I'm like, all right, this is going over. The 7.5, but then the bullpens came out and they started doing kind of well and holding the hitters in check. And I think there were no runs scored for a couple of innings there. And a few innings in the middle of the game, I'm like, oh, this is getting bad. And I think it took into the 9th inning, I think, to actually get the over. It wound up in a situation where I think it was tied 3-3 in the 8th. And I'm like, okay, but it might be one of those situations where it's dangerous because you have the over 7.5 and it might land exactly 7, a 4-3 game. But luckily, the Brewers were able to get 2 runs late there, win the game, go over, barely. Still think it was the right handicap. Maybe a little bit debatable. It hit. I'm going to have one play today, and it is also going to be on the, oh, wow. I think I forgot to change the branding here. Did I? I don't even know. Did I? No, I think I'm right. I'm all messed up, man. I'm looking at the banners. I'm like, wait a minute. What's going on here? Because we did Tower Gang last night, of course, so I thought I had not switched over the branding there. All right, I am going to have one play today. It is in baseball. Let's just talk about it. There is only one baseball game today, and I'll just talk about it now. We got all of the games today. I'll talk about all 4 games that are on the board today for across all 3 of the sports. Mets, Milwaukee. Every other team swept the wild card series yesterday, so San Diego, Kansas City, and Detroit all advanced yesterday. Those AL upsets going on there. I don't know if I'm that thrilled about it because I want the Yankees gone. But Detroit is a very root-worthy team. With the way that they do things, it's just crazy, man. Where they just come together as a team. They go with like the opener approach. They go with a lot of bullpen games. It's the new Major League Baseball. It is what it is. They don't pay a lot of money for these high-priced relievers in a smaller market there, but they come together and they're able to do it and they're able to strategize. Hinch, really good manager over there. Manager of the year, baby. AJ Hinch. I'm so old, I remember him playing in Major League Baseball, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure he was a catcher on Oakland, right? If I remember correctly. Maybe I'm out of my mind. I don't know. But Detroit looking good, and their catcher, Rogers or whatever, has the awesome stash. Makes you kind of want to root for them because of that, too. Even though they busted my playoff bracket there. Let's look at Mets, Milwaukee here, man. Milwaukee, I'm going to be playing the Milwaukee side in this one. Milwaukee Brewers, -120. What's up? What's up, Scott? I do take ukulele requests sometimes. It kind of depends on whether or not I know the song. If it's a song I have to, actually spend some time to learn, it's a little bit less likely. But I know a lot of songs, and I can just kind of look at the chords and just play it. But Milwaukee -120 is my play, man. I'm playing on the Milwaukee money line, full game here. Milwaukee's up for -115 to -122. They're a little bit public, 63% of the tickets, but 79% of the cash on Milwaukee. I think it all is just coming to a head here, man. It's just all the things that I've talked about this season where I said you might be able to find spots where Milwaukee is being overlooked a little bit in the playoffs, although they are a little bit public here. So the public is not totally off of them, but I do think that they're still maybe being a little bit undervalued here at home because I do think they have the advantages in this game to some extent where they should be getting a little bit more than home field here. And you see the cash. Looks like it is legitimately coming in on them with the cash percentage and the line moving up on them. I'm saying I agree with it, obviously. And we're talking about 2 pitchers that I've talked about all season, man. Jose Quintana, Tobias Myers. You got the aging veteran on one side in Quintana, and I've talked about how I don't think he's that good. He's not a hard thrower, but he has been pitching well at the right time. So he's been pitching well recently, so that's the thing. He's got his numbers way down on the season. His ERA and WHIP were worse than this for most of the season. 3.75 ERA and 1.25 WHIP is not that bad, but he's been pitching really well when it matters the most. Which is basically just September because he actually wasn't that good in August. His last 4 starts, he pitched 3 shutouts going at least 6 2/3. in all of them. But then he did face Milwaukee, and he didn't do as well, but he had a .72 ERA in the month of September. Finally gave up some runs against Milwaukee, though. Only went 4 1/3, put 7 men on base, gave up 2 earned runs. He struck out 9. That was a very weird start from him because he's not a huge strikeout guy. The fact that he got hit, I don't think is that weird because that is something that tends to happen to him. But maybe we see him kind of taking a step back to really what we know that he is. Like maybe he's just starting to regress a little bit. He was pitching really well during this run to get them into the playoffs, but now, I don't know, man. He's up against this Milwaukee team. They just saw him, although as I'll mention, that is the case with both of these starters. Both starters pitched against these opposing lineups in the series that happened right before the Mets had to finish the season against the Braves. The Mets' actual scheduled final regular season series was against the Brewers at Milwaukee. So these teams did just play each other. That was part of my handicap last night where I said that both starting pitchers had just seen these opposing lineups. So that was a little bit of an advantage to the hitters when they just saw that pitcher. So that's going to come into play here too. So that might be a little bit of a disadvantage to both starters here. But just because both starters are in that same position, then I think looking at the starting pitching matchups, I think the fact that they both may be at that slight disadvantage, I think it's going to, that kind of it negates itself, basically. So I think it kind of evens out, and then you can just look at how do these pitchers match up against these opposing hitters, because these opposing hitters did both just see these opposing pitchers, even though Quintana's obviously been around for so long. The Brewers are familiar with him. The fact that he did start pitching a little bit more poorly in that game, and it was against the same Milwaukee lineup, I think that isn't really that great as far as what he might be able to do in this game. That doesn't look that great. And the fact that we have, actually it's a smaller sample size than I thought, 66 at-bats that Milwaukee has against him. 20-11 strikeout walk ratio is not very good, really. 11 walks is way too many. But the Brewers, over that span, have hit 303 off of Quintana with a 903 OPS. So he does not have good stats against them. I think he is the inferior of the two pitchers. He is the much older pitcher, and it's all coming to a head, like I said, man, where I've talked about how I don't like him that much. He did pitch well down the stretch, but his numbers against Milwaukee aren't good. He just faced Milwaukee, and he didn't do very well in that game. He actually threw a lot of pitches, 92 pitches in that game. That's going to be part of this handicap as well to some extent. So he made a full start as far as the pitch count is concerned. It just didn't do well, was very inefficient with his pitches, and just got taken out of the game. On the other side, another guy I've been talking about all season, Tobias Myers, a good rookie pitcher, man. And we may be getting a little bit of value on his side because people don't know who he is. They know who Quintana is, and he's gotten his stats way down, and they look pretty good. Nobody knows who Myers is. He is a rookie, so I guess the one caveat here is it may be a little bit dicey to play a rookie in the playoffs. Like, is he going to have some nerves facing his first playoff start here? It's possible, but the fact that he's done so well over the course of the season, I don't know if I'm too worried about that. I think maybe he'll show up. Kind of reminds me of, I think Arizona had a couple of young pitchers in their rotation last year, right? They at least had Fod. I don't know who else they had, but they made that playoff run with some pretty inexperienced guys in their starting pitching rotation, if I remember correctly. But Tobias Myers, I've talked about him throughout the course of the season, man. He's been a really good pitcher. He's been pitching well recently, too, with ERA in the 2s in July and August. Slightly over 3 in September, but still, he had one start where he gave up 4 earned runs at Arizona. Not an easy place to play, man. Facing probably the best offense in baseball at a hitter's park, in their park, and he didn't do that badly in that game, really. Aside from that, he's allowed 2 or fewer earned runs in every start, going all the way back to the end of August is the last time he allowed more than that. Facing Arizona a couple of times. He did face Cincinnati on the road, which he didn't do that well in that start, but he limited the damage. That's also a hitter's park. And then he finished off the season against the Mets. So that is one thing I did say. Both of these starting pitchers did just face these opposing lineups, which, again, that was part of my handicap last night, which is why I went with the over. But that was a combination of both of those starting pitchers having just seen those opposing lineups and the fact that both starting pitchers had bad numbers against the opposing hitters. In this case, we have one guy who has bad numbers, which I just showed you, Quintana, against the opposing hitters, and he was just seen by those opposing hitters. And we have Myers, who actually has good numbers against these opposing hitters, even though he was just seen. And I guess the caveat here is that I think that was the only time the Mets had ever seen him. So, yes, Myers did have a little bit more of an advantage in that game because the Mets had never seen him before. But he only went 4 innings in that game. He shut them out for 4 innings, 5 strikeouts, no walks, only allowed 1 hit. So he was very good in that game. And you can see here the manager there for Milwaukee has actually pulled him early in his last 2 starts to try to get him ready for the playoffs because they knew they were going to be in the playoffs. So he was pitching like almost 100 pitches per game per start until those last 2. They let him pitch on his regular schedule, but they held him to 49 and 56 pitches, basically on like a 50 or so pitch count. So like I said with Burns the other night, even though Burns got no offense behind him, the Brewers have a better offense right now than the Baltimore Orioles do, okay? The Orioles' offense is no longer even playing in the playoffs. So, Myers, so I think that's a good thing for him, man. So he's pitching on his regular rest, on his regular schedule, but they gave him rest in those games because they shortened his starts in those 2 games to get him ready for the playoffs. So I think he's the more rested pitcher coming into this game. So I do think that's a little bit of an advantage. So even though that big advantage that he would have had against the Mets because they hadn't seen him before the first time he faced them, because again, as I always say, you have a good rookie pitcher. They always have a little bit of an edge that first time those hitters have to see him. They don't know what to expect. So he was pitching with that advantage. He will not have that advantage anymore. They just saw him. But they did only see him a couple of times through the lineup because they did. The Brewers did take him out. So I think that maybe it won't be as bad, even though the Mets, maybe it won't be as bad as sometimes it is when an opposing offense is just seeing that opposing pitcher, I should say. I mean, every indicator is that Myers has just been a consistently good pitcher. So even though I don't expect him to just completely shut the Mets out in this game, but he just needs to out-pitch Quintana, be better enough to get this win. And we're playing full game on this too because I think the hitting and the bullpen, I think, is actually fine to include in this bet as far as Milwaukee is concerned as well. But Myers, I mean, of course, that was the only time he faced the Mets, but man, it was a good start. So that amounts to them having 14 at-bats against him, 5.0 strikeout walk ratio, as I just showed you, 0.71 batting, averaging 214 OPS. So yes, even though he might take a little bit of a step back because the Mets have now seen him once, so they know what he throws, they're familiar with him, so he doesn't have that added edge that those rookie pitchers have now because it's the second time and it's in really quick succession. So that does worry me a little bit. But I think Myers is the better of these 2 starting pitchers, man. So I'm going with him. Even though he is a rookie, it is a little bit of a risk. But it all comes down to this, man. My handicapping throughout the year has kind of led me to the play on this as well. I didn't expect that I was going to have a play in this game. Then I just looked at the numbers and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to. And then it is full game because one thing, I think momentum carries, man. So we had Milwaukee last night. I mean, they looked like they might lose that game and be out completely. They were they were facing elimination last night. Andre, what's up, man? The Brewers were facing elimination last night. They were down 3-1 early in that game, and then they were able to make the comeback, tie the game in the middle of the game, and then get the late win there. Really dramatic win. When you see that happen in the playoffs, a lot of times that team, that carries, that momentum kind of carries for that same team because you're not going to have a letdown in the playoffs, man. You know what I mean? Like, you're coming off a big dramatic win. It tends to carry over into the next game in the playoffs, especially if you're just staying at home like this, which these wild card series, I forgot to mention, they're only 3-game series, so the home team just hosts the whole series. So we do still get Milwaukee at home here, and then the Mets, that was kind of a brutal way to lose, man, because they were on the verge of, like, you can see ESPN has, like, the percentages up the game. I think it was on ESPN or ESPN2. I think it might have been on ESPN. And it was showing, like, the Mets were, like, 70% to win in the middle of the game. So they were 70% to win the series. And then it just all implodes and goes away. I think it's actually kind of hard to get yourself up off the mat after you lose like that, where you're on the verge of advancing, you think you have it, and then you lose that game late like that. I actually think that puts the Mets in kind of a situational disadvantage as well because of the way they lost that game. I think it kind of becomes like a little bit of a hangover, whereas with Milwaukee, you're not going to see a letdown. I mean, you're not going to see – I mean, both teams are still going to be focused here, but like the mental state and momentum-wise, I think is much better for Milwaukee. And now they see, hey, we can actually do this. We're not – both teams are facing elimination now, so we've evened the playing field here. I think that helps Milwaukee as well. The one thing that may not is that Milwaukee did use more of their bullpen yesterday than the Mets did, but Milwaukee, I think, has the better overall bullpen. I think they kind of do a similar thing to what Detroit does in some aspects. Milwaukee tends to use their bullpen almost in kind of like bullpen-esque games in some of their games, and their bullpen has been one of the better bullpens over the course of the season. They're actually up there, I think, like top 5 in bullpen ERA. So I think that's not that bad for Milwaukee, even though, yes, they use their relief staff a little bit more than the Mets did last night. But I think Milwaukee actually has the better of the two bullpens. And Milwaukee did kind of bridge the gap last night using McGill, who's kind of like a long relief type of role there. So they saved some of their better relievers still. So I think it kind of all evens out. And Milwaukee, I think, has the better offense. So we're playing Milwaukee full game. Tower Gang NPC, what's up, man? Hopefully you guys checked out Tower Gang last night. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show last night. It was kind of weird. We had we got into a lot of conspiracy stuff. Of course, that's always going to happen on Tower Gang with that crew. But yeah, you always get that mix of like the conspiracy stuff and just ridiculous humor. So yeah, Milwaukee is the play there. Milwaukee money line -120. That's a full game money line on that one. Next up, what do we got? College football, Texas State and Troy. Oh, we're getting some heavy hitters in these Thursday night games, man. Texas State is at Troy in the earlier of the two games here. Texas State. Oh, holy crap. I haven't been sharing my screen. I thought I was sharing my screen the whole time. Man, I keep forgetting to do that. I apologize. Texas State and Troy here. All right. Texas State's 13-point favorite. They're up from -13 to -13 with juice on the road at Troy. Texas State, obviously the odds makers are telling you they are the significantly better team. Troy has had a decent football program, but I think they're having a down year this year, man. They have not been playing well. Texas State is a very good offensive team. I mean, they showed it last year. They were scoring a lot, so the public is also going to be coming in on the Texas State side if they're looking at this college football game because they like these high-scoring offenses. They're certainly the better team as well, but of course you're paying a lot for it. You're having to lay a big price for that. 63% of the tickets, 77% of the cash. On the other side, though, on Troy. So the market indicators are actually on the Troy side as far as the cash discrepancy is concerned, but it's not something that I want to get involved in, man. Texas State, they're in a situation where they had a battle in primetime against a big conference team against Arizona State, and that was a close line in that game. I said I liked Texas State in that game, and they fell just short in that game. So I think maybe they were a little bit hungover coming into the next game against Sam Houston. I think they actually had a bye after that coming into the Sam Houston game, too, and they played – the Sam Houston game was actually kind of a big game as well because they're actually playing at Houston Stadium. So it was kind of this weird neutral site game, although I think it was closer to Sam Houston. I think Sam Houston is closer to Houston than Texas State is. Texas Tech is in San Marcos, I think, which is, I don't know, 2.5 hour drive away, whatever it is. I don't know Texas geography that well, man, even though I'm an expert at geography. Texas State, yeah, so I think maybe they were a little bit hungover after that big Arizona State game, even though, yes, they went into a bye, but going into a bye on that note, I think it's a little bit tough. Like, it wasn't a bad note. It was more of a note where you put like a big emotional effort into that game. So I think the hangover kind of lasted through the bye, and Texas State was like a double-digit favorite in this game against Sam Houston, and they lost the game. So they are coming off of that. So Texas State would kind of be in a bounce-back spot, and you can see they probably should have won the game. They were winning by 18 in the third quarter of that game as like a 10.5 point favorite, and they still lost the game. They did outgain Sam Houston State by a little bit. Sam Houston State, I don't think is that bad of a team, though. The records could be a little bit misleading, of course. Texas State is actually the better of the two teams. They face the tougher schedule between them and Sam Houston, who was also playing tonight, by the way. Texas State. So I do think they're in a bounce-back spot here after that loss as a pretty big favorite. But Troy is also coming off a loss in a game they should have won. I mean, Troy, they haven't exactly faced the easiest schedule. I mean, Nevada's not really that good, but they are playing better than we expected. Memphis and Iowa, both pretty good teams, man. I mean, Iowa's one of the best defenses in college football. So Troy, they have not faced the easiest schedule. So I don't know that they're as bad as maybe they look as far as their 1-4 record is concerned. Their only win was against an FCS team, and they should have beaten UL Monroe. I don't know what this really was, man. These teams all dropping games to UL Monroe as favorites. Troy was a home favorite here, 6.5 point favorite. They did outgame Monroe by a bit, and they won the turnover battle, and they still didn't win the game in an ugly, low-scoring game. So nobody's going to want to be on Troy because of their ugly final score results and that ugly result in that most recent game as well. Obviously, the public's coming in on Texas State here, man. They have the way better offense, but I mean, perhaps Troy does have the better of the two defenses here. You're not going to find me on Troy, though. I think both teams are actually kind of in bounce-back spots here after both teams lost as favorites in the previous game. So I don't really see that much of an edge one way or the other here. I'm not playing this game. My only play is on the baseball game. As I said, total here is up from 56 to 57 with juice to the under, so a slight move up, but 76% of the tickets and only 61% of the cash on the over there. I don't think you're going to find me on a primetime over in a Texas State game either, because the public, they like Texas State's offense, man. Texas State, very high-scoring offense. Troy, not really so much. And maybe Troy's defense will factor in and maybe hold Texas State's offense in check to some extent. Who knows? But you're not going to find me playing the over here either. The over definitely going to be public in a Texas State game because their offense is so good. The cash percentage is obviously less on the over than the amount of tickets is. I forgot to talk about the total in the baseball game, by the way, which I don't have much of a read on that. It's down from 8 juice to the under to 7.5. A lot of low totals in playoff games. 66% to the over as far as the tickets are concerned, and 57% of the cash. So it looks like the market is kind of indicating on the under, with the line having moved down a little bit in that game and less of the cash in the tickets on the under. With Quintana not having good numbers against Milwaukee, though. Like on the surface, it looks like it's a matchup of two decent pitchers with decent ERAs, but Quintana's numbers not very good against Milwaukee. And, Myers being a rookie, which I am not too concerned about that, obviously, because I'm playing the game, but I don't know. Could it be a concern as far as the under, as far as playing an under is concerned there? Maybe it could. And the fact that both of these teams can put up offensive numbers, I think is a little bit of a concern. It's been by far the highest scoring of those series. So that is what's going on there. Sam Houston State and UTEP is the other game. Oh, boy, yeah. Like I said, we get these really great games in primetime tonight, man. Two double-digit road favorites in these games, low-tier FBS games where nobody's going to want to watch these things. Although Texas State is kind of fun to watch, to be honest, with their offense. Sam Houston State is not really that bad of a team either. Sam Houston State's sitting at 10. They're up to 10 with juice. 61% of the tickets, so similar market to the other one. Both double-digit favorites have moved up a little bit, have the public ticket percentage, but the cash percentage is coming in on the other side. 75% of the cash on the UTEP side here. UTEP's a pretty ugly team, though, man. They're pretty bad. Sam Houston, obviously not bad. I mean, their record is good. They haven't faced the most difficult schedule, really. UCF is the best team they faced so far, and they did get dominated. Tough game, though, on the road. So that was their only road game so far, and they've played at home almost the entire season. So this is still only their second road game, so I think that makes it a little bit difficult. Even though they are still staying in Texas, they're having to go way to the west. Probably 6 hours away, maybe, or something like that, to go to UTEP in El Paso. Sam Houston, yeah, I mean, the teams that they've beaten are not very good, except for Texas State. That was a pretty impressive win against Texas State. They're not really used to going on the road because they only did it with UCF, and it was not a very good game for Sam Houston, although, like I said, UCF is actually pretty good. I may talk more about the UCF game going into Saturday. I'm not so sure yet. I don't know what my plays are going to be, man. The college football slate this week is really difficult. Sam Houston, yeah, so they're coming off the game against Texas State that I just talked about, man, where Sam Houston was losing almost the entire game. So final score may be a little bit misleading because they didn't play that well in that game. I mean, they were losing by 22 early. They did a good job to come back, really. The game was actually close statistically. So Sam Houston did actually play fairly well, even though they were losing for a lot of that game. They certainly showed a lot of heart there to come back in that game as a big underdog, stay in the game, and then they wound up winning the game as a 10.5-point underdog. So I actually think they could be in a little bit of a letdown spot, and it almost looks like somewhat of a sandwich-ish type of spot because that's a big game, and you win as a double-digit underdog. You have to go on the road and play this pretty bad UTEP team who's winless on the season. They're at the bottom of your conference. And then who do you have up next? One of your conference foes who's a significantly better team in Western Kentucky who just almost upset BC as a double-digit underdog there. Western Kentucky has been a good program recently. They're not bad. They're certainly, I think, one of the better teams in Conference USA here. As we get this Conference USA matchup here, where I don't even know what conference the other game is in, man. What is it? The Sun Belt? Yeah, I think it's the Sun Belt. Yeah, so we have a Sun Belt matchup and a Conference USA matchup here tonight. So Sam Houston, I think there is the potential they could overlook UTEP here, man, because Western Kentucky is a much bigger game on deck. They do actually have a bye up next. So Sam Houston, you're also looking at a team that's playing a 6th straight game in a row. They have not had a bye yet. So that also makes it difficult. A lot of teams have had a bye mixed in there, as I mentioned, or I haven't mentioned it yet, but UTEP is actually coming out of a bye. So the rest scenario is also better for UTEP. So you have Sam Houston coming off a huge win as a double-digit underdog. They played last week, and now they have to play again against UTEP. This game was this midweek or Saturday? I don't even know. That was a Saturday game, too. So Sam Houston's also playing on a short week off of that. So actually kind of a lot of disadvantages for Sam Houston coming into this game, man. So this would actually be closer to a play for me. So as far as the 2 college games are concerned, I'm not playing it, but the best lean in the college football games to me would be to take UTEP plus the points. But as I'll mention in a second, I can't do it because UTEP is just a terrible team. But, I mean, that's factored into the line, of course. But Sam Houston, yeah, they have not had a bye yet this season, so they've had no break. I don't think they've had a bye yet, right? I think they've just played straight through unless they played in week 0. Yeah, no, they have not had a bye yet. They're coming off that big game at, actually, the Houston Texans Stadium, I'm pretty sure. Huge game, big upset win coming out of that. And now they get this lowly UTEP team, and they got Western Kentucky on deck, a better team. They're probably looking forward to that break, man. Playing this many games in a row without a bye, they want that break too. So Sam Houston, I think they're in a bad situation there. UTEP, yeah, they're winless. They're a pretty terrible team. They might even be worse than we think they are, but they're coming out of a bye. So if anything, if you start your season 0-4, man, and then you go into a bye, if anything, that bye should help you a little bit. And you're playing a pretty good conference opponent in Sam Houston, who's 4-1 on the season at home. So I think you're going to step up for it, man. You're coming out of this bye. I mean, UTEP's schedule hasn't really been that easy. They've had to play Nebraska, Liberty, and Colorado State all on the road. Liberty's one of the best teams in their own conference, I think, in USA. And Nebraska, of course, was ranked for a while. Nebraska's a very good team in the Big Ten. And Colorado State, they're not a good team. UTEP is certainly worse, but still having to go to Colorado State, a bigger conference team on the road, not an easy thing to do. And UTEP at least hung in that game to within 10 points. I think they probably covered in that game. No, they didn't. Colorado State was only 8.5. I thought they might have been a double-digit favorite there. So they did not actually cover, but still losing to them by 10, even though Colorado State is pretty bad. It's not that bad for UTEP. But if anything's going to help you, man, you start the season 0-4. I think the best thing for you is to go into a bye, try to figure something out. I don't really know what's going on with their quarterback situation here, as it looks like Locklear played the first 3 games, and then McConnell played the most recent game. So I don't know if they intentionally switched their quarterback or if there's an injury. I'm not really sure, so that remains to be seen what's going to happen. It looks like there wasn't really that much of a drop-off to the other guy, though. So I don't know if it really matters that much that UTEP, I don't know which one of their quarterbacks is playing. I don't think it matters that much, but the situation, I think, would put you on the UTEP side here because they are coming out of the break. And for all the reasons that I already said, I don't want to rehash it. I got to talk about this NFL game really quick there. So I do lean to taking UTEP plus 10, 10.5 there, whatever it is. Lean with the market on that one. And the total is sitting at 50. 83% of the cash and 96%, or 83% of tickets and 96% of the cash on the over. Thinking this is going to be an over game. I'm not so sure about that, man. I don't like playing a lot of overs in primetime games. I mean, it very well could be. UTEP's defense may very well not be that good, but they've played some lower scoring games that Sam Houston has, and UTEP's offense is not very impressive. So if you're trying to take an over there, you need UTEP's offense to hold up their end of the bargain. Who knows if they actually will, but maybe Sam Houston's defense is not that great and will allow some. Who knows? NFL, this game is hard to read, man. Bucks, Falcons on a short week. Falcons have dropped from -3 to -1.5 with juice. But I think the line move, I don't know if all of it is actually like legitimate action coming into the Buccaneers, because you see the ticket and cash percentage is actually indicating otherwise. I think that this line may have moved because of injuries, but I'm not so sure, because the biggest injury, I think, in this game is actually Mike Evans may not play in this game for the Buccaneers. Although, even if he is your top wide receiver, I don't know how much he really would affect the line. Like maybe half a point at most. but still something to keep an eye on. Evans is injured, and I think both teams have some injuries on the offensive line here. So we'll see how that's going to have an effect. And I think it might have more of an effect on the Falcons. Usually I don't see that affect the line to really any of an extent, though. So I don't really know what moved this line down from 3 to 1.5, to be honest. Unless it was maybe to some extent what we saw last week, where Tampa looked like the more impressive team last week, but both teams are actually coming off big wins. So again, it's a situation where both teams are in a situation where you could look to play against both of those teams because they're in potential letdown spots, but they're playing each other in a divisional game on primetime, so probably no letdown here. But both teams coming up big wins, so it's just really not an advantage to either team there because both teams are kind of in a similar spot as far as that's concerned. Excuse me. I think the offensive line injuries probably are more detrimental to the Falcons because their offense is the offense that struggles more. In general, I mean, they do have some weapons around Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins, he's not been great so far this season. I think his Achilles is still hurt, man. He looks like he's having issues planting on that foot. So I think it's a little bit of an issue for Cousins. So we'll see if he starts adjusting and getting better as the season progresses, but he has not been that great so far, even though he does have some weapons around him. The Falcons probably going to try to run the ball with Robinson there as he's their best offensive player, but the Buccaneers are better against the run than against the pass. As I mentioned, they do have some injuries in the secondary as well. They're kind of beat up there. Their run defense is better than their pass defense. So I don't know what to expect in this game, really. And Falcons, I think their run defense is actually better on their side, but the Bucs are more of a passing offense. Their rushing attack isn't as good, although it hasn't been that bad so far this year. Falcons, I think, are a little bit better at defending against the run than the pass. Their defense looked pretty good to start the season, and it's been a little bit less good in their last couple of games, but I don't know if there's that much we can take away from that. I still think the Falcons are a decent defensive team, even though they have a new defensive coordinator there. Tampa Bay, they're 3-1. I mean, the public's going to come in on them, as you can see here. 63% of the tickets, 56% of the tickets on the Bucs. Cash evenly split, though, 50-50. So it looks like the market indicators are on the Falcons a little bit, and I have to pick this game and pick them. God help me. I might wind up just taking the Falcons in these pick 'em pools, but I don't know. Just because when all other things are considered and, you know, there isn't a situation that puts you on one side or the other, the market read is what I tend to use as the deciding factor. But I don't know, man. We will see. Tampa, they're coming off a win where I think they looked way too good against the Eagles, man. The Eagles should have shown up. I mean, they were in playoff revenge there in Tampa. Big emotional win for Tampa, man. They completely dominated Philly. There was a point in the game where Philly had like 0 yards of offense in almost the entire first half. Tampa completely dominated them on the yardage, first downs, basically everything. Possession, won the turnover battle as well. So I don't think the score was misleading or anything. They just played a really good game. Tampa did. But that's, again, it's a big win over Philadelphia. Huge win, even though, yes, I know this is a divisional game, but Tampa's sitting atop the division. I don't know if they consider this Atlanta game to be as big as this Philadelphia game was. They do have New Orleans up next, too. I don't know if that's really cause for look ahead because New Orleans is tied with Atlanta as well. The New Orleans looked like the way better team in their first 2 games with a lot of scoring there, but I don't know about that. But still, Tampa, this is a big emotional win also because the hurricane had just come through, which may have affected Philly's travel a little bit in their preparation getting there. Tampa just stayed at home, and I think they might have stepped it up a little bit more just in the wake of the hurricane and whatever. They showed up, and they played a really big game. Maybe they wanted to play well for that area that was hit by the hurricane, although some of the other areas got hit worse, like Atlanta. Some of the areas in Georgia, at least, and in the Carolinas, even worse, so in Tennessee, I guess, all got hit more than I think the Gulf Coast even did. But still, big emotional wins. So Tampa Bay could be in a little bit more of an emotional letdown than Atlanta is. But Atlanta, I mean, like I said, the hurricane was coming through their area too, and they're coming off a big, like, dramatic win as well against the Saints, where they made a comeback in this game against the Saints. They were looking like they were going to lose that game, man. It was back and forth. They were losing the game early. They had the lead later in the game. I had Atlanta and pick them in that one. They went into the fourth quarter with the lead. They gave up a touchdown with 1 minute left, and it looked like they were going to lose the game. But they're kicking in a dome, man. They got Younghoe Koo, who's one of the better kickers in the NFL. 58 yards. They had the advantage of being able to do it in a dome, so it kind of helped out the kickers in that game, of course. But 58-yard game-winning field goal on basically the last play of the game. Very, very dramatic win for Atlanta there. So Atlanta could also be in a letdown. So both teams are kind of in spots that would normally be letdown spots, but they're playing against each other in a divisional Thursday night game. So that kind of makes it difficult, man. On the side there, I don't think there's really much of a situation here to look at on the side. Atlanta may be the somewhat more motivated team just because they don't really have a more important game up next either. They probably will throw their focus at the Bucks because the Bucks are the top team in the division, have been winning the division recently. The Bucks have also had the upper hand in the series recently, have won most of their games against Atlanta recently as well. So that might actually motivate Atlanta a little bit more as well. I actually think the total may be the better way to look in this game than the side, because the side is really difficult to pick in this one. The total is sitting at 43.5. It hasn't really moved off of that. 82% of the tickets on the over, though, and it still hasn't moved. So that kind of tells you something, that the odds makers are kind of just staying pat on that total, even though the public is coming in and playing an over here. 62% of the cash on the over, so less of the cash than the tickets. Thursday night games tend to be low scoring in general, man, just because it's a short week, so there's less preparation. The offenses tend to get affected by less preparation more than the defenses, which is crazy because you think that the rest would kind of mean that the defense is kind of at a disadvantage, but the offenses kind of tend to be a little bit sluggish on these Thursday games, man. Just not enough rest there. Whatever it is, tends to affect the offense. I think maybe it affects the offense a little bit less in a divisional game, though, because when it's not a divisional game, a lot of times the road team is in a worse spot because they're not familiar with having to go to that venue, and it's on a short week, so they're not really familiar with that, not really familiar with having to make that travel. So that can affect the road team. But in a divisional game, not so much. I don't think the road team is used to going to this place. The Bucks play at Atlanta every year, so I don't think that matters as much. And they're only coming up from Tampa, so really not much travel there. And the Falcons are just at home, so really not a whole lot of travel for either team here. So I don't think that's really going to affect either team to any extent. But just because Thursday night games tend to be lower scoring, and because this Falcons offense, honestly, the Falcons are more of a defensive team. I think their defense might be able to show up in this one. The Tampa Bay offense actually had struggled a little bit in a couple of games as well, even though they've looked good in a couple of games as well, including last week. But their offense is a little bit of a mystery there. I don't know what you're going to get there. Both offensive lines are a little bit beaten up, and this Falcons offense definitely struggles a bit, and their defense, I think, is decent enough to maybe hold Tampa Bay in check a little bit, that I think maybe the under would be the better look in this game than the side. What's up, all you guys in the chat? Zach, what's up, brother? You still like UTEP? Yeah, I mean, I agree with that side, obviously. Go Sooners from Seth. What's up, brother? Fan of Baltimore teams, but also OU. You must have gone to OU, I'm guessing, but you live in Baltimore. Is that the case? Sorry about your Orioles, man, but I can't be too sorry about it as a Red Sox fan, but we can both gang up on the Yankees. How about that? Fuck the Yankees. Yankees suck. Yankees suck. All right. Yeah, Ravens, they're a good team, man, as well. I'll maybe talk about the Sooners. Are they playing on Saturday or not? I don't even know. They might have a bye. I don't even know. Johnny, what's up, man? Zach, what's going on, brother? Oh, I already said what's going on. You like Samantha Houston? Yeah, Sam Houston is a chick, actually. Sam Houston is trans now, actually. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Zach, don't play parlays, man. That's why you want to straight bet everything, because you're playing these parlays and you get every game right but one. Wouldn't you be so much happier if you just straight bet and just bet individually all those games? You'd be winning, man. You win 3 out of 4, you win instead of losing the entire parlay. Yeah, that's right. Don't be a degenerate gambler. Bang whores and do coke instead. Much less degenerate than being a gambler, being a disciplined gambler like I am. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. One more time, my only play I got today. Sorry that I forgot to share the screen while I was talking about the baseball game, but Milwaukee Brewers minus 120 is the play today. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Tower Gang Toad. Follow me on Twitter. Go check out the Tower Gang podcast. Another hilarious episode last night, of course. Go check it out if you missed it. Tower Gang, we're everywhere. And go sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/Tower Gang. And you get bonus content, pre-show, post-show, although we didn't do one last night because half of the guys had to do stuff right after the show. So Cole needs to fix his new house or something. I don't know what else was going on with the other guys, but no post-show last night. But usually we give you the live post-show, and we have a Telegram where you guys can hang out as well. Have a good one, man. Have a good day. Let's get this win. Go Brewers. Peace out, man.